Welcome to this complimentary presentation on the role of the real estate developer, brought to you by the Falvey Institute for the Development of Real Estate. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, I'm Wayne Falvey. I'll be narrating the presentation. In it, we'll examine the developer's major functions and responsibilities, the roles of the other players in the process, and the potential pitfalls for the developer. Let's get started. First question, what is a developer? Well, we probably all have an idea what that might be, but the list that's on the slide up there, slide number 3, is not an exhaustive list, but it covers the major areas. And that first bullet, creative, bleeds over into much of the other material that's up there. For example, problem solver. To solve problems, you've got to be able to think creatively. The problems are always unique. They're always one of a kind. There are no templates for it. Deal making, same thing. All the easy deals were done a long time ago. Now the deals are tough. You've got to be able to think creatively to put a deal together, because for a deal to click, both sides, buyer, seller, if we're talking about that type of a deal, both of them have to get what they want. And going in with win-lose, it's all or everything mentality, I guarantee you won't get the deal. So you've got to be able to think creatively. You've got to be able to accept the fact that you're going to work very hard, you're going to work very long hours. To work a 7-day week, 10, 12, 14-hour days, that isn't an everyday event, but there are times in the development process when that's an absolute necessity. Intuitive, risk taker. You have to be able to see things coming, to kind of suspicion, to intuit, for lack of a better term, what might be coming up so that you can be prepared for it. The risk-taking part, this is the riskiest business of them all. I mean, it's a high-stakes game, and when you lose big. That takes somebody that's got a very high threshold of risk, or risk tolerance anyway. And the reward orientation goes along with that. The old adage is the higher the risk, the greater the potential reward, but the emphasis is on the word potential. So what does a developer do? All of the things listed there on slide 4, and a lot more. But these are some of the major things that the developer does. And that second bullet, identify the target market segments. You have to know who your market is. You can't just guess at it. You can't assume, well, I like it, so other people will too, therefore they'll rent it or they'll buy it. It doesn't work that way. You've got to have very deep, accurate market research in order to be able to identify your target segments, and more than that, be able to get in front of them with your product. You have to coordinate the team efforts, and we'll see shortly who's on that team. And then as you look a bit down that list, manage the development process, both of those. What that means is you've got to be in charge and you've got to stay in charge. You've got to have the right skills to be able to do that. If you don't do it, someone else, probably someone else on the team, will take over the project. And it'll become their idea, their vision of what the project should be, not yours, but you're paying for it. And it may not be successful. So what are you responsible for as a developer? The second bullet says it all. You're responsible for everything. Everything that happens, all matters that are errors of omission or commission, all mistakes, whether they could have been anticipated, expected, foreseen, knowable, doesn't matter. You're the person who put this deal together and sold it to everybody. You sold it to the lenders, you sold it to the investors, you sold it to the permitting agencies, you sold it to the community interests. Everybody. You convinced them this was a worthwhile project. So it doesn't matter if something goes wrong, it wasn't really possible for you to foresee it. Your feet are going to be held to the fire. Proper preparation or lack of it. Oftentimes people enter into this business without understanding just how demanding and difficult it is, how time-consuming it is. It isn't just capital that gets consumed, it's a hell of a lot of time. And the people skills, again, if you're going to coordinate a team, if you're going to manage a process, which means managing people doing different things in the stages of that process, you need people skills. If you're a loner, kind of a solitary soul, don't really like working with people, you have a cold personality, You'd rather just bark orders. Very difficult to get people to work with you in that kind of a situation. And negotiating skills, people skills are really important to negotiating skills. You're trying to put everything together. You're trying to put the financing together. You're looking in the debt markets. You're looking in the equity markets. You're negotiating that. You're negotiating the purchase of the property. You're negotiating leases with tenants or contracts with the general contractor, with the architect, with the planners, and with all the consultants. You're constantly negotiating. So who's on this team? Well, the column on the left of the next two slides tells you the stages of development, and the column on the right tells you who the major players are. And it's in roughly the chronological order in which the stages would occur in the development process. If we go to the second slide and down to the bottom, we'll see that it says the entire process. And then on the right, we see the names of several of the players who have roles that extend throughout this process. So they aren't working in a vacuum. In fact, none of the development process is done in a vacuum. Well, that's stage one finished. Let's go to stage two. They overlap and they interlock. Where are the potential pitfalls? Everywhere. The one at the top seems ridiculous. Now, who would overpay for land? Everybody. If you go back to 2006, for example, everybody was paying too much for the land. Land was way overpriced, wherever you were, except maybe Texas. The land was overpriced. Think Dubai. Think South Florida. Think Las Vegas. Think Phoenix, Southern California. All the places where people wanted to be, demand was hot. A lot of it speculative, although we didn't know that then. And as a result, the prices were going up, up, up. People were paying more for the land than they should have. But the logic was, if I wait a year, it'll be much more expensive than it is today. A year from now, I'll look back and say, hey, this was a pretty good deal. Well, a year later, from 2006, we were in a recession, and that land essentially couldn't be sold for what you had in it. Failure to understand market data, which is related to having unreliable market studies or market appraisals or market data. If you use the wrong people, you're going to get bad data. And if you rely on bad data, your project will fail. Oftentimes that's a matter of inexperience on the part of the developer, or the developer's going the cheap route and hires the less expensive team players. And the reason they're less expensive is they're not that good. And as a result, your product's not that good. Having an unrealistic timeline. Now, this is a matter of inexperience. For example, if you have a rezone that you have to do, and you think, well, what's that, 2-3 months? And it turns out to be 18 to 24 months, your project's hopelessly behind schedule and hopelessly over budget. So the bottom line then is, among all the industries, real estate development is clearly the most risk-intensive, stress-inducing, it will keep you awake at night, the most capital-demanding, typically front-loading, and market-sensitive industry of them all. So it bears thinking whether or not you truly want to get involved in this industry, but if you do, best of luck to you. And having said that, I thank you for your time and your attention in viewing this brief introductory program on the role of the real estate developer, and we hope you enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure to be able to make these programs available. For information on our other programs concerning the real estate development industry and the functions of the developer, please review the information on our website, falbeinstitute.com. You also may find our blog to be helpful, and it can be accessed from the website. Thank you.